My name is Peter. Thank you for being here. Sam, you often speak about the importance of intuition. You had a podcast with Gavin DeBecker that placed intuition front and center in a life-saving way for many people. And yet, in the person of President Trump, and this question is not about him, we see the dark side of intuition, a man who says that his gut guides everything he does. And so that's got those of us who believe in intuition feeling a bit shaky. Can you please reassure us from an evolutionary standpoint or otherwise that intuition is something we can value? Thanks.
Well, it sort of depends on what you mean by intuition. For me, intuition is when you can break down your knowledge of a thing no further, the step you take is intuitive. So if I ask you, how is it that you understand that 2 + 2 makes 4, right? So at some point you were taught this, but now you get it and you can't see it any other way. And when someone says 2 + 2 makes 5, that doesn't feel right. No, it makes 4. You believe it. You know it. It's a mathematical intuition at this point. It's basic. It's a basic building block of anything. If I told you, I have a bag here and I put 2 oranges in it, and then I put 2 more oranges in it, you'd helplessly form a picture of there being 4 oranges in there. And if I told you, oh no, there's 6 in here, well then something didn't add up, right? And this is, our knowledge of the world, our knowledge of causality, our knowledge of anything, our sense that the present bears some relationship, however lawful, to the past, all of that is cashed out intuitively. And so you can't get away from intuition. Everything is built on it, from basic logic and mathematics on up. But we recognize that many of our intuitions are bad. They're faulty. We did not evolve to have common sense intuitions about the way the universe works, especially at the smallest scale of atoms, and especially at the largest scale of galaxies, and especially across vast stretches of time when you're talking about billions of years. So we know there are areas where our intuitions are very, very bad, and we correct for them with other intuitions that allow us to correct for them, like mathematical ones, where this is an example I gave, I think, in my first book. But if I asked you, if we had a newspaper the size of this stage, and we could just fold it in half again and again and again, and we folded it in half 100 times, how thick would the resulting block of newspaper be? Well, most people, if you imagine it being the size of this stage, they imagine you would be able to fold it in half upon itself 100 times. And they imagine something maybe the size of a cinder block or a very large brick. But you fold a newspaper in half 100 times, what you have in your hands is measured in light years, right? I mean, I forget exactly what it is, but it's probably bigger than the galaxy. So that's a very bad intuition we have there. But the intuition that allows us to recognize that it's bad is that this very simple mathematical operation of exponentiation actually works, right? That if you raise something to the 100th power, 2 to the 100th power, and multiply by the thickness of a newspaper, you have a very big number. So intuition gets stigmatized as a word, but science is the product of intuition, and every gesture toward knowledge is the product of intuition at bottom.
I did that paper folding demonstration when I gave the Royal Institution Christmas lectures. Children come out, and you can't get more than 7 folds. It stops there. But I mean, I think the purport of the question by mentioning Trump is that when you have 2 people whose intuition differs, then you can't argue by saying, well, that's my intuition, I feel this, I feel that. That's what's really dangerous. And we want to get away from that kind of thing in public policy, in government. We do not want people who just do things because they feel it just feels right to them.
Yeah. But which is to say that you need an argument, but my noticing whether or not your argument runs through is again based on logical intuition.
That's a much more sophisticated point, and
but
one that President Trump wouldn't get, by the way.
No, I wasn't focusing on Trump,
And we'll have to save that for another time too, because when Sammy mentioned that, intuition is the foundation of logic, I think it's the reverse. That logic and mathematics, these things are where we're making direct appeals to the facts of the universe. But we use critical thinking, we use this examination to train our intuition. You can get better.
Yeah, you can get better, but
your
you can't
intuition
get...
can improve. And so when you have, as Richard was pointing out, you have two people whose intuitions are in conflict. The solution is never going to be a third intuition. It's going to be, let's make an appeal to the evidence and retrain everybody's intuition.
It's often a third intuition. I mean, often you bring in the mathematician who actually knows what he's talking about. And
I wouldn't call that intuition.
Well, no, but again, the intuition intuition is this move that you can't justify without pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. I mean, if I said to you, well, justify this idea that events need causes, the sense that when something happens, there must be some causal explanation for it happening. That's an intuition that is deeply held, and that's the foundation of science. And there are actually areas in science that seem to violate it, right? And then we're left actually not understanding what's going on, but we have other reasons to protect that area of confusion because, in the case of something like quantum mechanics, it just works. It has such predictive utility that even though we don't have a clear, realistic picture of what's happening, we have to say, in some sense, this is the math works out and it's right. But these areas of science are less than perfectly satisfying because we're struggling to form a picture of reality, and our intuitions we don't have the right intuitions for it, and that's not a surprise because we, after all, are apes.